The horse stood alone at the far end of the dry field where the land met broken fences and cracked soil. Heavy iron chains were wrapped tightly around its legs and neck, pulling its body close to the ground. The chains had been there for many days and maybe even longer. Dust covered the horse's coat and flies hovered around its tired eyes. The sun rose and fell again and again, but nothing changed for the horse. It waited without knowing what it waited for. People from the nearby town had seen the horse. Some passed by on wagons and some on foot. They looked at it from far away and shook their heads. A few said the horse was too weak to save. Others said it was not their problem. One man laughed and said animals were replaceable. No one touched the chains. No one brought water. No one stayed long enough to listen to the slow breathing of the horse. The horse had once been strong. Its body still showed signs of power beneath the dirt and pain. But days without food and water had taken their toll. Its legs trembled when it tried to shift its weight. Its eyes were dull but not empty. Somewhere deep inside, the will to live still burned, even if faint. The chains were not an accident. Someone had tied them carefully, making sure the horse could not escape. The marks in the dirt showed where the horse had once tried to move, pulling against the metal until its strength failed. Now it stood still, saving what little energy it had left. The town nearby was small and quiet. Wooden buildings lined the main road. People there lived simple lives and kept to themselves. Trouble was something they preferred to ignore. When rumors spread about the chained horse, most chose silence over action. Fear and comfort often worked together to keep people from doing what was right. One afternoon, when the sun was lower and the heat less cruel, a lone cowboy rode toward the town. His name was Luke. He wore a faded hat and his coat showed signs of long travel. His horse moved at an easy pace, tired but steady. Luke had been riding for days, stopping only when needed. He did not chase money or praise. He went where the road took him. Luke had seen many things in his life. He had seen greed, loss, and pain. He had also seen kindness in places people forgot to look. That was why he kept moving. He believed that if he stayed too long, the world would weigh him down. As Luke approached the edge of the field, his horse slowed on its own. Luke looked ahead and noticed the shape standing near the fence. At first he thought it was a post or an old tree. Then he saw it move slightly. Luke tightened the reins and guided his horse closer. With every step, his heart grew heavier. He saw the chains before he saw the eyes. Thick metal wrapped around flesh that should have been free. His jaw tightened as he climbed down from his saddle. Luke walked slowly, careful not to scare the animal. The ground crunched beneath his boots. The horse lifted its head slightly, its ears twitching at the sound. For a moment, fear flashed in its eyes. Then it stopped moving, as if it had already accepted whatever came next. Luke knelt beside the horse and rested his hand on the ground. He spoke softly, not with words meant to command, but with words meant to calm. He told the horse it was not alone. He told it to hold on just a little longer. The horse looked at him. Something shifted in its expression. It did not pull away. It did not try to fight. It simply breathed. Luke examined the chains and felt anger rise in his chest. The metal was rusted but strong. Whoever had done this wanted the horse to stay trapped until the end. Luke knew it would not be easy to break the chains without tools. He also knew that leaving was not an option. From the hill above the field, two figures watched. They had seen Luke arrive and recognized him as an outsider. One of them crossed his arms and muttered that the cowboy should mind his own business. The other stayed silent, eyes narrowed, waiting to see what Luke would do. Luke stood and walked back to his horse. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small water flask. He returned to the chained horse and held the flask carefully to its mouth. The horse hesitated, then drank slowly. Water spilled down its chin and darkened the dirt below. Luke stayed there for a long time. He shaded the horse from the sun with his coat. He spoke quietly and steadily. The horse leaned slightly toward him, trusting him more with each passing moment. The wind shifted and carried the smell of dust and dry grass. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed. Life in the town went on as if nothing important was happening. But in that field, something had already begun to change. Luke knew that freeing the horse would bring trouble. Whoever chained it would not be happy. People who stayed silent might turn angry. Still, Luke believed some lines could not be crossed. Leaving a living creature to die in chains was one of them. As the sun dipped lower, Luke looked toward the town. His eyes were calm, but his decision was firm. He would not leave. Not today. Not like this. The horse lifted its head higher than before. Its breathing grew steadier. For the first time in many days, hope entered the field, quiet but strong. And unseen by most, the moment marked the beginning of a story that would soon shake the town and change lives forever. The night came slowly over the field, and the air grew cooler as shadows stretched across the ground. Luke stayed beside the chained horse without moving far. He built a small fire a few steps away, not to scare the animal but to keep the cold from settling too deeply. The flames were low and gentle, just enough to give warmth and light. The horse stood quietly, its eyes following Luke as he moved. Each small action mattered. When Luke stood, the horse watched. When Luke sat, the horse relaxed. Trust was growing in a place where pain had lived for too long. Luke knew he needed tools. The chains were thick, and his strength alone would not free the horse. He thought about the town nearby and the people who lived there. Some would refuse to help. Some might threaten him. Still, he had to try. Before dawn, Luke left the horse for a short time. He tied his own horse nearby and whispered for the chained horse to stay calm. Then he walked toward the town, keeping his hands visible and his pace steady. The town was waking up. Smoke rose from chimneys, and a few people stepped outside their homes. When they saw Luke, they stopped and watched. Word traveled fast in small places. Luke reached the general store, a worn building with a wide porch. An older man stood near the door, sweeping dust away. Luke greeted him politely and asked for bolt cutters or any tool strong enough to break chains. The man frowned and looked away. He said the tools were not for sale. He said Luke should leave things alone. He warned that some matters were not meant to be touched. Luke did not argue. He thanked the man and stepped back. He tried the blacksmith next. The blacksmith listened but shook his head. He said trouble followed acts like that. He said the horse belonged to someone, even if that someone was cruel. As Luke walked through the town, whispers followed him. People looked from windows and doorways. Some felt guilt. Others felt fear. A few felt anger that a stranger dared to care when they had not. At the edge of town, Luke met a young woman named Anna. She carried a bucket of water and stopped when she saw his face. She asked what he was doing so early. Luke told her about the horse and the chains. Anna looked toward the field. Her eyes filled with sadness. She said she had seen the horse before but was afraid to help. She said the man who chained it was known for his temper. Still, she offered Luke a small metal file she used for farm work. It was not much, but it was something. Luke thanked her sincerely and returned to the field. Back at the horse, Luke worked carefully. The file scraped against the chain slowly. Sparks flew now and then, faint in the morning light. The work was tiring. His hands ached, and his shoulders burned. He rested often, giving the horse water and speaking softly. Hours passed. The chain weakened little by little. The horse shifted slightly, feeling the change. Hope made it restless, but Luke calmed it with his voice. As the sun climbed higher, footsteps approached. 3 men came from the town, led by a tall man with sharp eyes. He was the one who had chained the horse. His voice was cold as he told Luke to stop. Luke stood slowly and faced him. He said the horse did not deserve to suffer. He said leaving it to die was wrong. The man laughed and said it was his property. The townspeople gathered at a distance. No one spoke. Fear held their tongues. The man stepped closer and warned Luke to leave. Luke did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He simply said he would not walk away. Tension filled the air. The horse sensed it and stamped weakly. Luke placed himself between the horse and the man. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Anna stepped forward. She said the town had watched long enough. Another man followed. Then another. Slowly, people chose sides. The tall man saw the change and hesitated. He was used to silence, not resistance. Anger flashed across his face, but he stepped back. He muttered threats and turned away, knowing the crowd would not support him now. Luke returned to the chains. With renewed strength, he worked harder. At last, the metal gave way. One chain fell to the ground with a heavy sound. The horse flinched, then stood still. Luke removed the rest carefully. When the final chain fell, the horse stood free for the first time in many days. It did not run. It simply lowered its head and breathed. The crowd watched in silence. Some felt relief. Some felt shame. All knew something important had happened. Luke led the horse slowly toward water. The animal walked unsteadily but did not fall. Each step was a victory. As the sun began to set again, Luke knew this was only the beginning. The town had changed, but not enough. The horse was free, but healing would take time. And Luke would not leave yet. The morning after the chains were removed felt different across the land. The air was lighter, and the field no longer carried the heavy silence it once had. The horse stood near the water, drinking slowly and carefully. Its legs still shook, but each breath came easier than before. Luke stayed close, watching every movement. He did not rush the horse or pull it forward. He understood that freedom was not only about broken chains but also about time and trust. The horse lifted its head now and then, looking at Luke as if asking what would happen next. Anna returned early with fresh feed and a clean cloth. She moved gently and spoke softly. The horse did not pull away. That small sign filled Anna with quiet joy. She said the town had not slept well. People talked through the night. Some felt proud, others felt ashamed, and some felt afraid of change. Luke listened but said little. He focused on the horse. He cleaned its wounds carefully and checked its legs. The marks from the chains were deep, but not beyond healing. Luke believed the horse had survived for a reason. As the sun rose higher, more townspeople came to the field. They stood at a respectful distance. A few offered help. One brought apples. Another offered a blanket. These small acts showed that something inside them had shifted. Not everyone was pleased. The tall man who had chained the horse watched from far away. His face was tight with anger. He felt his control slipping. In his mind, this was not about a horse. It was about losing power in front of others. Luke noticed him but did not react. He believed that calm often spoke louder than fear. Still, he stayed alert. The horse took a few steps forward on its own. The crowd held its breath. When the horse did not fall, quiet smiles appeared. Anna wiped her eyes. She had never seen something so simple feel so important. Luke decided the horse needed a safer place to recover. The field was open and exposed. He suggested moving it to an old barn outside town. The barn belonged to no one now and stood empty but strong. A few men volunteered to help. Together, they cleared a slow path. Luke walked beside the horse, one hand near its neck. The horse trusted him enough to follow. The walk was long and careful. Every step tested the horse's strength. When it stumbled, Luke waited. When it paused, no one pushed. Patience guided them. At the barn, Luke made a soft space with straw and blankets. Anna brought water. The horse lowered itself slowly and rested. Its eyes closed for the first time without fear. As the horse slept, Luke stepped outside. The town lay quiet in the distance. He knew the real test was still ahead. Saving the horse was only the beginning. Facing what came next would require courage from more than just him. That evening, the tall man arrived with 2 others. He stood at the barn entrance and demanded the horse back. His voice was sharp, but the edge was weaker than before. Luke stepped forward and spoke calmly. He said the horse would not leave. He said the town had seen enough. He said some actions could not be undone, but they could be stopped. Anna stood beside Luke. Then one man from the town. Then another. The group grew. No one raised a hand. No one shouted. They simply stood together. The tall man looked around and realized he was alone. The power he once held had faded. He turned and walked away without another word. That night, Luke stayed in the barn. He sat near the horse and watched it sleep. He thought about how pain often hid in quiet places. He thought about how easy it was to walk past suffering and call it normal. By morning, the horse was stronger. It stood without shaking. It even took a few steps on its own. Luke smiled for the first time since arriving. Word spread beyond the town. Travelers stopped to ask about the horse and the cowboy who would not walk away. Some brought supplies. Some brought stories of their own struggles. Luke never sought attention, but he did not hide either. He believed stories like this mattered. As days passed, the horse regained strength. Its coat grew cleaner. Its eyes grew brighter. It began to trust not just Luke, but others too. The town began to change. People spoke up more. They helped more. Silence no longer ruled the way it once had. Luke knew he would not stay forever. But before leaving, there was one more thing to face. The town needed to learn how to stand on its own. And the horse still had one final step to take toward a future no one yet imagined. The barn became a place of quiet change as days passed. Sunlight slipped through broken boards and warmed the straw where the horse rested. Each morning the horse stood a little taller and moved a little easier. The deep marks left by the chains slowly softened, though they never fully disappeared. Luke believed those marks told a story that should not be forgotten. Anna visited every day. She brushed the horse gently and spoke in a calm voice. The horse leaned into her touch and closed its eyes. Trust was no longer rare. It was becoming normal. More people from the town came to the barn. Some brought food. Some brought tools to repair the roof. Others came only to watch in silence. No one laughed anymore. No one turned away. Luke helped where he could, but never took control. He believed change lasted longer when people chose it for themselves. He showed them how to care for the horse and then stepped back. One afternoon, a storm rolled in. Dark clouds covered the sky and strong wind pushed against the barn walls. Rain fell hard, turning the ground to mud. Inside the barn, the horse grew nervous. The sound of thunder echoed memories of fear. Luke stayed close and spoke calmly. He placed a hand near the horse and waited until its breathing slowed. Anna stood on the other side, steady and strong. When the storm passed, the town looked different. Mud covered the roads. Fences leaned. A few roofs were damaged. People needed help. Without being asked, Luke and several townspeople worked together. They repaired what they could. They shared food. They checked on each other. The horse watched from the barn, ears forward, calm and alert. The tall man returned again that evening. He did not shout this time. He stood quietly and looked at the horse. His face showed confusion rather than anger. He said little but listened as others spoke. Anna told him the horse was recovering. Another man said the town had changed. Luke said nothing. He believed real change came from listening. The tall man left without protest. He did not apologize, but he did not threaten either. That was enough for now. As the days grew warmer, Luke tested the horse's strength. He led it outside the barn and let it walk freely. At first, the horse moved slowly. Then it found a rhythm. Each step carried confidence. Children from the town came to watch. They laughed softly and clapped when the horse trotted a short distance. Joy replaced fear in the open field. Luke watched from a distance. He knew the horse was ready for the next step. One morning, Luke saddled his own horse and prepared to leave the barn. Anna noticed and asked if he was going away. Luke said not yet, but soon. Anna looked at the rescued horse and asked what would happen to it. Luke said the horse needed a place to belong. A place where it would never be chained again. The town gathered that evening. They spoke openly for the first time in many years. They talked about responsibility and care. They decided the horse would stay with them. The barn would become a shared place of shelter and learning. Luke felt peace hearing their decision. He had hoped for it, but he had not forced it. That night, Luke packed his saddle. He walked one last time to the barn. The horse stood and walked toward him without fear. It rested its head near his shoulder. Luke smiled and whispered words meant only for the horse. He thanked it for reminding people of what kindness looked like. As dawn approached, Luke mounted his horse. The town stood nearby, quiet and respectful. Anna stepped forward and thanked him. Luke tipped his hat and turned toward the road. Behind him, the horse stood strong and free. The town stood united. The chains were gone, but the lesson remained. And though Luke rode away, what he started would last far longer than his time there. The morning Luke left, the road was quiet and long. His horse walked at a steady pace, and the sound of hooves slowly faded behind him. Luke did not look back often. He trusted what he left behind. He believed the town had learned how to stand without him. Days passed, and life in the town settled into a new rhythm. The barn became a place of care and purpose. People took turns feeding the horse and keeping the space clean. Children learned how to approach gently and respect strength without fear. The horse grew stronger with each passing day. Its coat shined under the sun. Its steps were firm and confident. The scars from the chains remained, but they no longer defined it. They became reminders of survival rather than pain. Anna watched closely as the town changed. People spoke more openly. They helped one another without being asked. Silence no longer ruled their choices. She often thought about Luke and wondered where the road had taken him. One afternoon, a traveler stopped near the barn. He asked about the horse and the story behind it. Anna told him everything. The traveler listened quietly and nodded. He said stories like that traveled far and carried weight. Soon, more travelers came. They brought supplies and shared news. Some stayed to help for a few days. Others left inspired. The town was no longer forgotten. The tall man who once chained the horse kept his distance. Over time, his anger faded into something else. He watched the horse from afar and saw how it thrived. One evening, he approached the barn alone. He stood quietly and said he was wrong. His voice was low and unsure. No one shouted at him. No one turned him away. Anna thanked him for speaking. That moment closed a door that had been open too long. As weeks turned into months, the horse became a symbol. Not of pain, but of what courage could change. Children drew pictures of it. Adults told the story to newcomers. The barn was repaired fully and stood strong. One clear morning, the horse ran freely across the field. Its movement was powerful and smooth. People watched with smiles and quiet pride. They knew this freedom was earned. Far down the road, Luke stopped at a ridge and looked toward the horizon. He had helped others since leaving the town. Different places. Different struggles. But something about the horse stayed with him. He remembered the moment he first saw those chains. He remembered the choice to stop. Luke knew that one choice could change many lives. He hoped others would make the same choice when faced with silence. Luke never returned to the town, but he never needed to. The story lived without him. Back in the town, Anna stood at the barn as the sun set. The horse stood beside her, calm and strong. She placed a hand on its neck and felt steady warmth beneath her palm. She thought about how close everything had come to ending differently. She thought about how easy it was to look away. And she felt grateful someone had not. The town gathered that evening for a simple meal. Laughter filled the air. Children played near the barn. The horse rested nearby, free and unafraid. No chains lay on the ground anymore. They had been removed and buried deep where they could not harm again. The land felt lighter. The people felt stronger. And the horse, once left to die, now stood as living proof that one act of courage could change everything forever.